You know, Samaria, Stephen A. Smith is a very interesting dude. And while I don't have an ear for his brand of work anymore, there was a point in time when I really appreciated his perspective and his pen. But by virtue of the evolving landscape of sports media, he seemingly has retired the pen and became way more personality than journalist. But every so often, he will yell from the mountaintops about his lengthy and elite career as a journalist to shut anybody up who is critical of the incendiary comments that he regularly makes on First Take. So when I saw a clip going viral from an interview that he did on the Rubin Report, I was surprised that he made a statement claiming to be misled as a reason that he supported Kamala Harris in the last election. A journalist is by definition one who seeks out information. And on something as important as the presidential election, Stephen A. Smith didn't do his due diligence. I can understand that there is a growing line of people making sure that they are in alignment with our president-to-be, a line of people who were once very critical of him but are now afraid of what it may look like to not be in his good graces. I understand why that alliance is important for CEOs of social media monopolies that seek to eliminate its competitors from the U.S. market, or a billionaire who isn't even from this continent seeking global power to play God through technology. But for a journalist to say that they were misinformed about the incoming president's competitor and then not go into detail on what they were misinformed about now makes everything they say about anything, including sports, questionable. So Stephen A. Smith gets the fumble of the week for finally admitting that he has forgot how to be a journalist.
You know, the word that comes to mind when I think of Stephen A. Smith is wordsmith. Right? Like there's no doubting that he uses words. He knows words, he knows big words, and he knows how to use them. And I think in that interview, he said a lot of nothing. He falls on both sides. I'm serious. He falls on both sides of things. He says stuff to get like a shock factor, but then he may come back and say something else. You know, like it's crazy to me how, like you said, that he can talk about how he was misinformed. He can bring up Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich and talk about how them speaking out against a candidate's supporters, right, is detrimental to the game of basketball. But you don't have any issue with Sean Hannity. You know why? Because you're on his show all the time. When has Sean Hannity ever not said anything negative about Democratic or liberal voters and so?
Well, I don't want to get too political. All right, let's keep it sports.
I'm just saying he brought them both. He brought three of them up at the same time. He talked about Pop. He talked about Steve Kerr. But then he's like, oh, but Sean Hannity is this. It's crazy. It's almost like he's upset that in sports you have a little bit of politics. I think that they both were hoping that there would be no politics in sports. It's just...
Yeah, he's got a bit of a God complex. God complex that's brewing. And he feels like he is able to exist and operate above the parameters of people who he feels, I guess, he is above. And it's interesting that you, as a sports media journalist, can delve into the lane in the world of politics, but you have an issue with people that are not journalists.
Thank you.
Having that same level of passion or desire to discuss political things. And so it is a huge contradiction. He often, I feel like, capitulates and tries to accommodate what is public sentiment amongst Black people without it being his true feelings on the inside. I think that he has performed for Black people. At times, his true nature seeps out and we can actually see who Stephen A. Smith really is. But he always tries to make sure that he keeps some level of alignment with Black people. And he performs for us. And it is to our detriment because I don't think on the back end, I don't want to make this racial. But what he often does is tries to accommodate what the growing public sentiment amongst Black people is without honoring how he actually feels. And that's fine. How you feel is how you feel. But don't try to limit the conversation of those who actually have a passion and actually have done their research and are not being misled.
No, you're absolutely right. Because he basically said that he voted for Barack Obama only because he was a Black man. But he really loved John McCain. Right? He's like, I that was my guy. But he was like, I couldn't bring myself to go to the polls and vote against a Black opponent. And I'm like, or Black candidate, excuse me. And so it's like I said, you really hit it on the head because he says a bunch of nothing. And for him to be a journalist, even when he brought up the Algerian boxer. Now we've talked about her the Olympic boxer. We talked about her on this platform, but then we came back and was like, okay, maybe we were misinformed on that. But now, all of these months later, you're still bringing that up. For you to be a journalist and to say that, to prove a point, to say, oh, Megyn Kelly she's the actual feminist. It's listen.
His journalistic integrity is greatly compromised. It makes it really hard for me to hear him talk about sports, because now I know that you have the ability to just say anything. You'll just say anything. And so, and we've always felt that on First Take, that he just would say incendiary things just so that he can get the reaction. And now we have some sort of evidence that he just be saying without any level of doing journalistic research or action. You know, like it compromises his counter argument to the criticism that he receives. Now we know that you are not somebody out here doing their due diligence and seeking out information. Now I have to question legitimacy of everything that you say you are and that you stand for, because in something as important as the presidential election, you did not do your due diligence. And if anybody is supposed to be able to do that, it's supposed to be a top flight journalist, which you used to be. That's how I feel.
Oh,
Stephen A. Smith, God bless on your upcoming contract negotiations. I'm sure if ESPN does not want to pay you the money that you think you are worth, I am certain that Fox and some other media outlets are desiring to have you on their platform, brother, because you represent a lot of things that they are in alignment with. Anyway, y'all let us know your thoughts on Stephen A. Smith really handing over the information that he is no longer that much of a journalist, but much more talking head. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Appreciate ya.